Jersey turning itself into an offshore finance center has changed the island forever. Some say for the better. John Hayes disagrees. He's from Attack Jersey, a small group fighting for financial reforms on the island.
We've lost about 40 hotels because Jersey government have backed finance to the detriment of tourism and agriculture. Our GDP is 57% finance, 4% tourism and 1% agriculture. Imagine it, 1%. And it used to be our Jersey potatoes, the Jersey Royals, our tomatoes, our flowers, used to be world famous. Now 1% of our GDP. Just because they're back financed to the hill. These are all apartments now. Our tourism industry has been, well, we call it prostituted.
John Christensen used to be an economic advisor to Jersey and the UK governments.
A tax haven to the extent that it did. What it's done is it's killed off its other industries. Tourism has gone, agriculture and light manufacturing industries, all gone, because when you host a major financial centre, as Jersey does, your cost base rises, your rents rise, your labour costs rise, and Jersey has just become too expensive for other businesses to thrive. So they've essentially killed off their former industrial base. And I was warning them very strongly about that at the time. This was my main concern.
These are all multi-million pounds.
How much would you have to earn to live here?
Wow.
The bankers.
A lot of the bankers, yes.
Is there any limit?
The bankers. Most are bankers or accountants. Yeah. You see, the way that the poor subsidise the rich is that our leader introduced a thing called 010. And what that is that registered companies off Jersey pay no income tax. They don't pay any income tax. That lost us £100 million straight away. Finance industry pay 10% instead of 20%. Now that meant that 100 million had to be made up. And the way that Le Sueur, who's our chief minister, organised it was, I shall introduce a tax called GST, General Service Tax. It's like your VAT. Now that at 3%. Now that means that everybody is paying the 3% in an effort to make up the £100 million that he has given away to big companies and the finance industry. Now we've got little old ladies who are struggling to survive on pensions. That 3% is crippling them.
It takes away, doesn't it?
Well, it does.
Because when you're watching the pennies, it all counts.
When it was put to him that little old ladies doing their weekly shopping, I find it very hard to survive, his comment was, they will have to shop round.
Ooh.
They will have... Now, can you imagine the audacity of that? That's like saying, Your Majesty, the people have got no bread, and she said, well, let them eat cake. Just like that.
Nick Lekonu, a local politician, took us up to one of the island's many beauty spots.
You know, I'm looking around me now. I see building works going on over there. What is happening? It doesn't look like this is an island in decline by any means.
No, what you see over there is the construction of some luxury flats, and they are at a luxury price as well. Obviously there's a market for it amongst this fairly wealthy elite that lives in the island associated with finance. They will be able to afford and buy those properties. Just to the left there you see another large property which would have been a 19th century landowner's residence. It's now probably owned by a multi-millionaire, and I know additional work has been done on that, and you know, extra garages for the Ferraris perhaps.
As always.
Yeah.
You don't want them exposed to the sea air, do you, at all? Horrible rust.
Perhaps nothing highlights the injustice of the tax gap, like rich people and companies getting all the perks and the poor paying for it.
So increasingly the island is being funded simply not with capital, these big finance industry companies paying the way. It's increasingly, it's the employees who the government is taxing. And
so the ones who can almost least afford it?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Time after time in Jersey we heard it was very difficult to speak out against finance. Good luck finding a job if you do, someone told us. To get the perspective of the Jersey government as well as the organization that coordinates the island's finances, we requested on-camera interviews. These were declined. Instead, we were kindly provided with a DVD of Finance Minister Philip Ozof defending the government's strategy.
If we do raise business taxes to an uncompetitive level compared to not only the UK but the other small nations that are competing for our business, whether that be other Crown dependencies or islands in the other parts of the world, those are the important reference points that we need to take in mind when dealing with competitiveness. We need to keep our taxes low to keep the economy strong.
We don't use the word tax haven in Jersey. We use the word international finance centre, offshore finance centre, but effectively it amounts to the same thing.
But the authorities there will tell you, John, that they're a well-regulated financial hub, a tax haven, a way for you to siphon off your money. They are not.
Well, we hear exactly the same from every single tax haven in the world, and we know over 70 of them. And authorities in all of those places will say, we're well regulated, we're cooperative, we are a good international financial centre. But the evidence goes right against them. I mean, the evidence we've collected shows that Jersey fails in 7 out of 10 key categories when it comes to information sharing and international cooperation.
A lot of the business that we do is about enabling rich individuals, but companies especially, the ratio is something like 4 to 1 company money, companies from allowing them to so-called manage their tax, to avoid paying full tax.
If you're a business, here's what to do. Employ the best financial advisors money can buy. It will be worth it in the long run. Register your business interests in your offshore haven. It does not matter if you've never set foot there. That's not the point. Create a complex web of shell companies, ones that exist solely on paper. Use these to confuse the taxman. If you're in the business of buying and selling, use your tax haven address to sell goods at a low price with a small profit margin, pay the small tax, then sell them on for a whopping profit. Sweet. For the truly super rich, repeat these steps several times and have tax officials spinning with the complexity of it all. You can't tax what you can't understand, right? President Obama recently signaled his intent to crack down on tax haven and tax avoiders. Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg said he had tax avoiders firmly in his sights. So it seems something might be done about the great tax con. But hold on, there's a catch.
We're talking here, Gavin, about billions lost to the Treasury because of these loopholes, the tax avoidance, the rich being clever with their accountants. How can we stop these people when they're in government? It seems almost ridiculous. You're stopping your friends, you're stopping your neighbours, you're stopping your relatives.
Sure. I mean, there is a fundamental issue here, and that is that this government has got people advising it who are some of the worst tax avoiders in the country. You know, we've got Philip Green, who is the owner of the Arcadia Group, who's one of, the biggest tax avoiders in this country, who has his company's his companies in the name of his wife, based in Monaco, so that he can avoid paying, avoid paying tax. You've then got Lord Ashcroft, who's another big tax avoider, who is bankrolling the Conservative Party. There's a big hypocrisy at the very centre of this government.
There's a coherence issue, isn't there? On the one hand, they're saying we're going to clamp down on tax evasion. It's costing this country far too much money.
Well,
on the other hand, we're turning the tax avoiders and the tax dodgers into heroes. This is the coherence problem here. And believe you me, the general public knows about this and feels very strongly about this. I'm right there in the thick of the things, and I get a lot of people from the general public saying this is fundamentally unfair.
Given the fact that they are funded by some of the biggest kind of private equity barons and hedge fund specialists who make great play in being very sophisticated with their tax planning, it's going to be I think unlikely that they will really take on this agenda.
This seems unlikely, since the government will be slashing the budget of an already creaking HMRC by 25%, This means there are now even fewer tax officials to hunt down those tax avoiders.